Hey folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier. I'm here with Mike's Instant Movie Review. The movie is On Fire. In case you don't know who I am, that's fine. I forgive you. My name is Mike Messier. I do a lot of stuff. I make my own films when I can. I write books often, and I make art. And I do this wonderful YouTube channel, One Mike Messier. It's one of several YouTube channels I have. The other ones being One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan, One Artist, Mike Messier, and One Man in the Camera Films, where you can see my own films. But today we're here to discuss a movie titled On Fire. It's kind of a disaster movie. You know, they say things like there's three types of conflict in most stories. Three possible types: man versus man, man versus himself, and man versus nature. And this one would definitely be under man versus nature, and actually more like a family versus nature, because what we have here is a nice family. They are struggling financially, like many people are. Many of us can relate to that, unfortunately. They're trying to get by. It's a couple. I guess you could say they're in their early 40s, I guess is probably best to say. And they have a teenage son who looks to be like a junior or senior in high school. He's an athlete. He has possible scholarships coming up for college sports. And the mom is actually a pregnato. She's about to have another child. So, a nice age gap between the two children. But she's 8 months pregnant, and on top of all that, I think they're kind of living in a double wide, like they're living in a more or less, a small house. And actually, the father of the father. So basically, Peter Facinelli, who you might remember from the Twilight movies, he plays Dave Laughlin. His dad is played by Lance Henriksen, who's been in a lot of stuff you've seen, some classic horror films. But basically, Lance is his father, who's kind of getting on with his age. His wife has passed away. Lance, as the dad, as George, lives in a little trailer in the backyard, and he's on an oxygen tank. He doesn't really take care of himself. He seems like he's kind of given up on life. This is the grandfather character, which I thought was pretty effectively done. And he does pretty rude to his daughter-in-law, who's 8 months pregnant. We see that kind of displayed. This movie is pretty interesting. I thought it was pretty good for the most part. I mean, I enjoyed it. I mean, it's basically a, you know, uh, family tries to survive despite all the shit coming down on them. And in this case, the shit, so to speak, is fire, good old fashioned fire, and very deadly. What I did like about this movie, first of all, the pace of it was pretty good. I mean, we did not really sit around and wait around too much. Yet at the same time, there was a good 10 or 15 minutes before the fire affects the main family. We do see the fire coming in the opening credits. Um, we do know where we're headed. I mean, there's no big mystery. The fire is not a surprise because, I mean, the title of the movie is On Fire. The opening credits shows the fire starting. We hear a radio broadcast about the fire. So we know what we're in for. But the way that they kind of illustrated the family and what the family was going through to actually make you care about these people, I thought was pretty effective. I mean, they're basically portraying, the struggling working class, the dad character. He's trying, he's an earnest guy. He's got his construction company that he's just started. He's not whimsical, he's not a dreamer, but at the same time, he's kind of getting it from both ends. I mean, he's got his wife, who he's had a child with, and now they've had this kind of surprise baby, you would think, 17 years after their son. But then he's a good son as well, and he's trying to accommodate his dad, his mother. This is Dave Laughlin, the Facinelli character. He's trying to, be a good son to his father, but his father's disrespectful to his wife, which kind of puts our man Dave here in the middle of it. And he's got a son who wants to go off to college, but hopefully the son can get a college scholarship, because we're kind of left feeling that Dave can't afford to put his kid through college, which, as a man, it's kind of tough when you can't do all the things for your family that you want to do. And yes, whatever. But I just thought it was good. They set up a nice background. Now, for me, kind of sitting there in the audience, the family, especially Dave as the dad, they're all kind of dismissive of this fire. And I think this is the way that a lot of people are. I'm here in Florida, and there's always, hurricanes and tornadoes and all these things coming through, flooding and so forth. And people typically don't want to deal with it. I mean, the feeling a lot of times it seems is ignore it and it will go away. And that's always a good motif or a good plan of action until it doesn't go away, until you're screwed. So, I mean, I think this film kind of shows us without, making these characters look dumb, but they're just like everybody. You hope that something like this doesn't happen, and typically you wait till the last minute to do something about it, and then it's too late. So this family kind of gets stuck in it, and that's why we have a film. If we did it, if we didn't have these people make some bad decisions with their timing and everything. One interesting scenario is that when they finally decide to do something about it, Dave, the husband, runs off to the hardware store to pick up some, supplies, and and the news has kind of misdirected people. The news hasn't been fully accurate, but it's told to the local citizens. So, people are kind of not taking this thing as seriously as they should if they knew how serious it was, basically. So when Dave goes out to get these supplies and he leaves his family at home, that's when he tries to get back to his family, and they've been told to evacuate. And of course, one thing I did like about this movie is that the cell phone service goes out for everybody. I really don't like cell phones in films. If you've seen my previous Mike's Instant movie reviews, I think nothing ruins a good movie or even an average movie worse than a bunch of phone calls, a bunch of cell phone calls. Texting is horrible in films. So this movie does the smart thing. It just blows up all the cell phone service for the most part. Then we're off to the races. We finally get into it. I guess I will say spoilers. At this point in the review, I'm going to get into some of the facts of the story or some of the, facts of the movie. Interesting, the whole dynamic of the guy trying to accommodate his own father and his wife, and getting caught in the middle. I could relate to that. I mean, whenever you have dueling family members and you're the person kind of caught in the middle, that's tough. So I felt for that character, the father, and also the wife. I mean, this is her home, and she's 8 months pregnant, and she's working, and at 8 months pregnant, she should be home, I would think, but she's got to work because she's the only one with a steady income. And so you can see her frustration that her father-in-law calls her the B word, calls her a bitch. So that's not very nice. And also I think I want to put a shout out because I've seen a couple of reviews for this films, and people are really not mentioning the element of the 911 call taker. And these are people that you don't really think about a whole lot. I mean, I don't know if you've ever had to call 911, or it seems like people only talk about 911 operators when they screw up. But in this film, it does a nice job of showing the humanity of the 911 operator. I believe her name was Kayla in the film. I'm trying to find her listed. Yeah, Ashley Fushi. I'm not familiar with her work, but she played the 911 operator. I thought she did great. And I thought, in that type of situation where you're literally just sitting there talking to people that, I mean, we see the 911 operator when she's on the phone with people that are dying from the fire. And what a horrible job. And this is only her second week on the job. Uh, Eventually, I mean, just to give some of the stuff away, we do see that I felt like this movie was a little bit of a commentary on the failure of the modern man to raise his family. Like this guy Dave is trying, he's trying, but it just seems like he's not doing a great job of providing safety or shelter for his family, or money. And it's tough. I mean, these days with everything so expensive for everybody, you can't really, blame Dave, this fictional character, too much, but you can relate to him. And you can see that his sadness and his remorse. And then, eventually the son, when Dave suffers a really nasty leg injury, I think that's called a compound fracture, when like the leg actually goes out, like the bone comes through the flesh. Pretty well done there. Theismann-esque or Sid Vicious-esque for all the wrestling fans. You can check out One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan from my wrestling channel. But basically, his son has to step up. His son has to step up and be a man. And then they kind of flash back to his son, racing track and so forth. And, all these skills come in handy, because the son has to go rescue for help. Apparently, this movie was not a big budget film, but I did not see that. You know, a lot of times I'll do these Mike Sins to movie reviews, and being a guy that's made my own low budget movies and knowing a lot of friends that make low budget movies, a lot of times you can see where the low budget considerations come in, sometimes with the acting, sometimes with the special effects. I didn't really feel that way about this film. I feel like they covered their basis. I didn't necessarily see the apparently there was some stock footage used in in this film, which I didn't recognize, and there was some CGI and some practical fire, some actual fire. So I thought they did a really seamless job of all that. Apparently, also the original director and co-writer of this film, I believe his name is Nick Lyon. Apparently, towards the end of production, he suffered from COVID, so he had to actually not direct the tail portion of the film, and Peter Facinelli, the actor, stepped in to direct the end of it, which I thought was nice. So, you know, people are struggling. You know, when people complain about the actors and the writers and all these strikes going on, I think a lot of times you don't a lot of times the common person who bitches about things like this doesn't recognize the hard work that a lot of people in the film industry put in to make entertaining things for you, the public, and for me. And but anyway, I give them credit for finishing the film. So overall, I did like the film. I thought, you know, once again, I kind of like to henpeck these things, nickel dick these things. If I were have making the film, I would have added a little button because the lady does end up having her kid. The wife, very good role for the wife, Fiona Dourif as the wife, Asher Angel as the son Clay. But when she has the baby, and they say that the baby's name is Hannah, I mean, just the simple fucking thing, folks, is to name the child after the 911 operator, Kayla. I mean, it's just such a slam fucking dunk. I mean, it's like, okay, you just went through this horrible thing. The son actually calls the 911 operator's cell phone number to thank her for helping his family survive this treachery. But why don't you just name your new daughter, your new addition to the family, after the 911 operator? It wouldn't be that hard. You know what I mean? It's such a slam dunk, but obviously they didn't hire me as a script consultant because I would have told them that. Or, I mean, if you wanted to do this, I mean, if you really want to add on the schmaltz, you could have named the daughter after the dead grandfather. You know, like the grandfather's name in this thing was George. You could have called the little daughter Georgia. You could have called her Georgia Kayla Laughlin. You know, give her the first name of Grandpapa and give her the middle name of the 911 operator. I mean, God, what a nice tie on the bow, but they don't do that. There was some biblical stuff. Once again, I see a lot of these movies that are kind of like, you know, Jesus movies or Christian movies in disguise. This one, hard to say because there is some, you know, praying going on. They're praying for survival. They're mentioning Jesus a couple of times, not a whole lot, but I didn't think that weighed down the movie, and I don't think it was preachy in any way, but it was there. And there was a little interesting scene where a character named Jacob is trying to survive the fire, trying to get out of the fire, while Dave, our main guy, Facinelli's character, is trying to go back into the fire to get his family out of it. And Jacob and David, who are both biblical names. I can't remember how those two biblical names are related to each other, but it did seem like some type of quick little biblical metaphor there of the Jacob character and the David character crossing paths. By the way, if you are making comments on Facebook, Twitter, or wherever else you're seeing this, you might have to go to YouTube to make a comment in the actual YouTube chat. Otherwise, I may not see it. I think that's about it, folks. So, I mean, I enjoyed this film. I thought it was good. I also like the pace of it. This movie was so short. I was able to see another movie right after. I was able to go and see the Kill Shop or the Killing Zone or something, or the Uma Thurman thing. So I'm going to do another Mike's Instant movie review. Believe it or not, the Kill Room, Uma Thurman and Samuel Jackson. I'm going to end this Mike's Instant movie review and do my second review of the day of the Kill Room. And later on tonight, I will be seeing The Exorcist, the new Exorcist sequel. I didn't realize how many sequels of The Exorcist there are. I watched the original last night to prep for this thing. Okay, folks, that's Mike's instant movie review. If you're new here, you can leave a comment or not. It's a free world, but I'll see you next time. Subscribe if you like, and don't if you don't.